I want to start with a truth we all know deep down. Not everyone who walks into our lives comes with good intentions. Some people, whether out of their own wounds, insecurities, or just a need for power, will do everything they can to chip away at your confidence, your relationships, and your ability to trust yourself. So how do you know when someone in your life is working against you instead of for you? How do you recognize the person who doesn't just want to hurt you in the heat of the moment, but wants to dismantle you piece by piece? I want you to imagine standing in a room with the lights off. It's pitch black. You can't see the furniture, the doorway, or what's in front of you. You move slowly, cautiously, arms stretched out to feel your way forward, hoping you don't run into something sharp, something that might hurt you. Now, imagine someone standing in that same room, but with night vision goggles on. They see everything, every obstacle, every hazard, every weakness. And if their intention isn't to guide you safely, but to watch you struggle, to make sure you trip, to use your blindness against you, then they have the advantage. This is what it feels like when you're unaware of the people in your life who don't have your best interests at heart. Awareness is the difference between being at their mercy and taking back your power. When you become aware, you start noticing patterns. You recognize when someone's words don't match their actions. You feel the tension in conversations where they try to plant doubt in your mind. You catch the subtle ways they try to control you, not through force, but through suggestion, through guilt, through manipulation disguised as care. And here's the most powerful thing about awareness. Once you see something clearly, you can't unsee it. Think about the times in your life when you ignored that gut feeling. Maybe you told yourself, they didn't mean it like that. I'm just overthinking. I should give them another chance. And then months, maybe even years later, you look back and realize the signs were there all along. That gut feeling was right. That quiet voice inside you was trying to warn you. The problem isn't that we can't see red flags. It's that we're often taught to second guess them. We are taught to be understanding, to be patient, to assume the best in people. And while those are beautiful qualities, they can also make us vulnerable to people who don't deserve that level of grace. Awareness is learning to trust yourself again. It's paying attention to how people make you feel, not just in the good moments, but in the quiet ones, in the moments where you leave a conversation feeling uneasy, questioning yourself, shrinking just a little bit more than before. The moment you become aware is the moment they lose their grip on you, because people who want to control, manipulate, and destroy you thrive in the shadows. They thrive in your self-doubt. But the second you turn the lights on, the second you say, I see what's happening here, everything changes, because now you have a choice. You can step away, you can set boundaries, you can stop giving them access to your mind, your emotions, your energy, and that right there is where your power begins. Emotional manipulation is one of the most dangerous tactics used by people who seek to control and dismantle you, not because it's loud or obvious, but because it's quiet, subtle, and designed to make you question reality itself. It doesn't show up in the form of a direct attack. It creeps in like a slow poison, one drop at a time, until you're no longer sure if you're standing on solid ground or sinking into emotional quicksand. So how does it work? How do manipulators gain control without ever having to raise their voice or make a direct demand? They twist your emotions against you. At first, they might come across as deeply caring. They listen intently. They remember small details. They offer comfort when you're down. But over time, that attentiveness is used as a weapon. They know your fears, your insecurities, and your emotional triggers, and they begin to use them against you. Maybe they criticize you, but wrap it in false concern. I just worry that you're too sensitive. You need to toughen up. Maybe they invalidate your feelings by making you doubt yourself. That never happened the way you remember it. You're exaggerating. Maybe they turn your love and kindness into a burden. If you really cared about me, you wouldn't question me. Little by little, they shape the way you see yourself. They make you feel like you're the problem, like you're overreacting, misunderstanding, or just being difficult. 2, they create a cycle of highs and lows. One of the most dangerous aspects of emotional manipulation is the cycle of reward and punishment. One moment they're warm, affectionate, and deeply understanding. The next they're cold, dismissive, or angry. But they won't tell you why. You're left scrambling, trying to figure out what you did wrong, trying to get back to the version of them that was kind, loving, and supportive. And when they finally do give you a glimpse of that warmth again, it feels like a relief. You tell yourself, see, they do care about me. But that moment never lasts. And the cycle repeats. This isn't love, this isn't friendship, this isn't support, this is control. And the worst part, it's intentional. They keep you emotionally off balance so that you never feel secure. Because when you don't feel secure, you're more likely to stay, to try harder, to prove your worth. 3, they make you feel guilty for having boundaries. Emotional manipulators hate boundaries because boundaries are the one thing that keeps them from having full access to your mind and emotions. So the moment you try to establish one, whether it's saying no, asking for space, or standing up for yourself, they flip the script. Wow, after everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me? I guess I'm the bad guy now, right? You've really changed. You never used to be like this. And suddenly, you're the one apologizing. You're the one feeling guilty. You're the one questioning whether you're being too harsh, too demanding, too selfish. But let me be clear, setting boundaries is not selfish. Protecting your peace is not selfish. Saying no to manipulation is not selfish. The person who truly cares about you won't try to make you feel bad for doing what's best for you for themselves. They make themselves the victim. No matter what happens, no matter how much harm they cause, an emotional manipulator will always find a way to make themselves the victim. You call them out for hurting you, suddenly they're the one who's hurt because of how you confronted them. You distance yourself because their presence drains you. Now they're telling everyone how cold and heartless you've become. You stand up for yourself after months or years of being treated unfairly. Now they're saying, I don't know what happened to you. You used to be so kind. They rewrite the story so that they are the one who has been wronged, and you are the one who should feel bad for speaking up. This is not accountability. This is manipulation. 5, the silent treatment and emotional withholding. There's another tactic emotional manipulators use when they can't control you through guilt or distortion. They control you through silence. They withhold affection, they ignore your messages, they act like you don't exist until you're desperate to make things right. And then when they finally do acknowledge you again, you feel relieved. But that's the trick. They want you to associate emotional security with their approval. They want you to crave their validation. And once they know you'll do anything to avoid their silence, they own you. How do you break free? Awareness is step 1. Once you recognize manipulation, it starts to lose its power. The next step, stop playing the game. Stop explaining yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. Stop seeking approval from someone who thrives on making you doubt yourself. Stop trying to fix a dynamic that was designed to keep you small. The truth is, you don't owe anyone unlimited access to your emotions. You don't owe anyone endless chances. And you don't have to carry the weight of someone else's emotional dysfunction. People who love you won't use your emotions as weapons. People who respect you won't make you question your own reality. And people who truly value you will never, ever need to manipulate you to keep you close. You deserve better. And the moment you decide to walk away, to stop explaining, to stop justifying, to stop playing their game, you win. Self-worth is like the foundation of a house. When it's strong, everything built on top of it, your confidence, your relationships, your decisions, stands tall. But when someone deliberately chips away at it, little by little, that foundation weakens. And before you even realize what's happening, your sense of self is no longer solid ground, it's rubble. And that's exactly how people who seek to destroy you operate. They don't launch full-scale attacks on your confidence overnight. They don't tell you in one day that you're worthless, incapable, or undeserving. No, they do it in pieces. They wear you down bit by bit until one day you're standing in front of the mirror and they didn't mean it that way. I'm overthinking. But then it keeps happening. Over time, these tiny moments accumulate. They settle into your subconscious, and one day you start second-guessing yourself in ways you never used to. You hesitate before speaking up. You doubt whether your ideas are good enough. You stop wearing the things that make you feel good. You stop pursuing the dreams you once believed in, not because you suddenly lost all your talents, intelligence, or beauty, but because someone carefully, strategically, and persistently made you question them. 2, they redefine your identity. For you, at the core of self-worth is self-perception, how you see yourself. And manipulators know that if they can control that, they can control everything. So they start shifting the narrative about who you are. You're not ambitious. You're unrealistic. You're not strong-willed. You're difficult, you're not passionate, you're too emotional, you're not independent, you're selfish. And the more they repeat it, the more you absorb it, because let's be honest, when someone you care about keeps defining you in a certain way, a part of you starts to believe them. You start to reshape yourself around their perception, even if it's completely false. And that's exactly what they want, because the more they can distort your self-picture, the more control they have over your choices, your confidence, and your willingness to challenge them. 3, they condition you to seek their approval. One of the most dangerous tactics in the erosion of self-worth is conditioning. They create a system where your value is no longer something you define, it's something they get to decide. When they approve of you, they reward you with kindness, attention, and affection. When they disapprove, they withdraw, criticize, or belittle. And without realizing it, you start shaping your behavior around their approval. You stop saying things that might upset them. You avoid choices that might make them uncomfortable. You start prioritizing their opinions over your own, not because you don't have your own voice, but because every time you use it, it feels like you're risking something: love, connection, peace. And eventually you start believing that keeping them happy is more important than being yourself. 4, they make you dependent on their validation. At first, you might have been someone who didn't need external validation. You made decisions with confidence, trusted your instincts, and knew your worth. But over time, they train you to depend on their opinion to feel okay about yourself. They dismiss your ideas until you start asking for their input on everything. They criticize your choices until you're too afraid to make them on your own. They mock your emotions until you start wondering if your feelings are even valid. And suddenly you find yourself waiting for them to tell you who you are, what you should do, and whether you're enough. That's not love, that's not friendship, that's control. 5. Jung knows the normalized disrespect. When your self-worth is intact, disrespect is non-negotiable. You walk away from people who belittle you, dismiss your feelings, or treat you as less than. But when someone erodes that self-worth, they shift your standards. They make mistreatment feel normal. The first time they insult you, they say they were joking. The first time they ignore your feelings, they say, You're being too sensitive. The first time they lie, they say it was for your own good. And little by little, you start accepting behavior you never would have tolerated before. Because when they've spent months or years convincing you that you're not that special, not that smart, not that lovable, you start to believe that maybe you don't deserve better. That is how they win. How do you rebuild your self-worth? The good news, what was broken can be rebuilt. Here's the truth. The person you were before they tried to tear you down, that person is still in there. Maybe quieter, maybe bruised, but not gone. The first step is recognizing the lies they made you believe. The second step is rejecting them. And the third step, the hardest step, is choosing yourself again. You stop waiting for their approval. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You remind yourself of who you were before they tried to shrink you, and you take up space again. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not unworthy. You are enough exactly as you are. And the moment you decide to believe that again, the moment you decide to reclaim yourself, they lose. Imagine you're in a room filled with people who love and support you. They remind you who you are. They validate your feelings. They hold you accountable when necessary, but they never try to break you. They lift you up when you're struggling and when you're doubting yourself. They remind you of your strength. Now, imagine someone slowly leading you away from that room. At first, it's subtle. They convince you to spend less time with certain people, to avoid certain conversations, to rethink your relationships. Maybe they make you feel guilty for wanting to be around others, or they plant seeds of doubt about the people you trust most. And before you know it, you turn around and realize you're standing in an empty room, completely alone. This is how isolation works. This is how they trap you. Because here's the truth. Someone who wants to control you cannot afford for you to have a strong support system. They cannot risk you having people in your life who remind you of your worth, who see through their manipulation, who might encourage you to leave. So they take your relationships, your friendships, your family ties, your community, and they break them down piece by piece. And they do it so slowly, so carefully, that by the time you notice, the damage is already done. One, they sow doubt about your closest relationships. The first step in isolating you isn't physically pulling you away from people, it's making you question them. Have you ever noticed how jealous your best friend is of you? Your family never really supports you. I don't think they actually want what's best for you. I just get a weird vibe from them. I don't think they like me. And that's a red flag. At first, they disguise it as concern. They pretend they're just looking out for you, that they're only pointing things out because they care. And you might even start to wonder, are they right? Have I been blind to these things? But the truth is, this isn't about protecting you. This is about planting doubt. Because the more you question the people in your life, the easier it is for them to create distance between you. Two, they make themselves your only safe space. Once they've made you suspicious of the people who actually care about you, they position themselves as the only person who truly understands you. I'm the only one who really knows you. No one else sees how amazing you are like I do. I just want to protect you from people who don't appreciate you. And at first it feels good. Who doesn't want to be with someone who makes them feel special, valued, irreplaceable? But what's actually happening is that they are cutting you off from everyone else. They're ensuring that your emotional security is dependent on them and them alone. And once they know they're the only voice in your life, they can start reshaping your reality. Three, that they create conflict between you and others. If convincing you to doubt your relationships isn't enough, they'll start creating actual fights and misunderstandings. Maybe they tell you that someone talked badly about you behind your back. Maybe they twist your words when talking to someone else, creating drama that never needed to exist. Maybe they directly interfere, sending messages, stirring up tension, making sure that you feel like you're constantly at odds with the people you once trusted. And eventually you get tired of the drama, tired of the tension, tired of the confusion. So to make things easier, you withdraw. You pull back from friendships, from family, from social spaces. You convince yourself that life is simpler this way. But what you don't realize is that this was their goal all along. 4, they make you dependent on them for emotional support. Once they've successfully cut you off from the people who genuinely care about you, they become your only source of emotional validation. Now, when you're struggling, you have no one else to turn to but them. Now, when you're feeling insecure, they are the only person who can reassure you. Now, when you're questioning yourself, they are the only one giving you answers. And here's the dangerous part, because they are now your only emotional lifeline, you start doing everything in your power to keep them happy. You start bending over backward to avoid upsetting them, because losing them would mean losing the only connection you have left. And that's how they gain total control. 5, they make you afraid to reach out for help, even if you realize what's happening. Even if deep down you know you need to reconnect with the people who love you, they make you afraid to do so. They convince you that no one will understand, that it's too late to rebuild those relationships, that people will judge you for staying with them so long. And so you stay, not because you want to, not because you don't feel the loneliness creeping in, but because they have made the outside world feel like a place you no longer belong. How do you break free? The first step is recognizing what has happened. If you look around and realize that you've lost connection with the people who once mattered to you, ask yourself, did this distance happen naturally, or was it encouraged, manipulated, created by someone else? Then remind yourself that it is never too late to rebuild. The people who truly care about you, they never stop caring. They may be hurt, they may need time, but they are still there. And reaching out, sending that first message, making that first call, showing up again will always be worth it. And most importantly, you deserve relationships that don't require isolation. Real love does not ask you to shrink your circle. Real love does not demand that you cut off people who have been good to you. Real love does not make you feel alone. The moment you recognize that someone is using isolation as a weapon against you, you have already started to win. Because now you can take your power back, you can reclaim your space, your relationships, your support system. And once you do, once you reconnect with the people who truly have your best interest at heart, they lose. When we think of control, we often imagine it as something obvious, someone barking orders, demanding obedience, or using threats to get their way. But the most dangerous kind of control doesn't look like control at all. It looks like love. It looks like concern. It looks like someone who just wants what's best for you. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous, because when control is wrapped in the language of care, it doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like protection. It doesn't feel like being trapped. It feels like being looked after. And by the time you realize what's happening, the walls have already closed in around you. So how do you recognize it? How do you tell the difference between real care and control disguised as care? 1, they insist they know what's best for you. At first, it feels like guidance. They give you advice. They help you make decisions. They share their perspective on your choices. And that's normal, right? That's what people do when they care about you. But then you start to notice a pattern. Their advice isn't just advice, it's an expectation. Their opinion isn't just an opinion, it's the only right answer. And when you make a different choice than the one they suggested, they don't just disagree, they make you feel like you've made a mistake. I just don't want to see you get hurt. I know you better than anyone, and I know this isn't right for you. If you would just listen to me, everything would be easier. What starts as guidance slowly turns into control, and before you know it, you're not making decisions for yourself anymore. You're just following their instructions, believing that they must know better than you do. 2, they make you feel guilty for your independence. Maybe they admired your strength, your ambition, your ability to take care of yourself. But as time goes on, they start to make you feel bad for doing things on your own. Why do you always have to be so independent? I just wish you needed me more. You don't have to do everything by yourself, you know? And suddenly what was once a strength is now framed as a problem. Suddenly, making decisions without their input feels wrong. Suddenly, being into a job is right for you. I'd rather you do something safer. I don't think those friends are good for you. You should spend more time with me instead. I don't think you should wear that. It doesn't suit you. And before you realize it, your choices are no longer yours. They've been replaced by what they want, what they think is best, what makes them comfortable. And the worst part, you didn't even notice it happening because they never demanded it outright. They made it seem like care, like guidance, like love, for they keep you dependent on their approval. One of the most powerful ways to control someone is to make them crave your approval. At first, they shower you with praise when you do something they like. They tell you how proud they are, how much they love you, how much they appreciate you. And that feels good. It feels like validation, like security, like love. But then when you make a choice they don't like, the warmth disappears. They withdraw, they sulk, maybe they get passive aggressive, maybe they go silent. And suddenly, you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? And so without even realizing it, you start making choices not based on what's right for you, but based on what will make them happy. You stop following your own instincts and start chasing their approval. That's not love, that's control. 5, they frame control as protection. This is the most dangerous trick of all. When they tell you what to do, limit your choices, or discourage your independence, they don't do it with anger. They don't frame it as control. They frame it as protection. I just don't want to see you struggle. I worry about you too much. I need to know you're safe. I just love you so much. I can't bear to see you make the wrong decision. And so instead of resisting, instead of seeing it for what it is, you start to believe it. You start to see their control as love, their limitations as care, their restrictions as protection. And you begin to shrink. You begin to silence your own voice. You begin to lose yourself in the name of keeping them happy. How do you break free? The first step is recognizing the difference between real care and control disguised as care. Real care empowers you. Control disguised as care limits you. Real care respects your choices. Control disguised as care replaces them with its own. Real care gives you space to grow. Control disguised as care keeps you small. So ask yourself, do I feel like my choices are my own, or do I feel like I'm constantly seeking their approval? Do I feel supported in my independence, or do I feel guilty for wanting it? Do I feel free to be myself, or do I feel like I have to fit into what makes them comfortable? Because love should feel like freedom, not a cage. And the moment you recognize the difference, the moment you start making decisions for yourself again, their power over you begins to crumble. You do not owe anyone your obedience. You do not owe anyone control over your life. You do not owe anyone the right to shrink you under the disguise of love, because real love never asks you to surrender yourself. And the moment you decide to reclaim your choices, your voice, and your independence, they lose freedom. It's a word we all understand on the surface, but when it comes to our personal lives, our relationships, our choices, our sense of self, freedom can become more complicated. Because sometimes we don't even realize we've lost it. Freedom isn't just about physical independence. It's about emotional and mental liberation. It's about breaking free from control, manipulation, and toxic influences that keep us small. It's about stepping out of the shadow of someone else's expectations and standing fully in who we are. But here's the truth. The path to freedom isn't always easy. It's not a single dramatic moment where you suddenly break free and never look back. It's a journey, a process, a fight to unlearn what you've been conditioned to accept and rebuild the strength you didn't realize you had lost. And that journey begins with a single decision. I deserve better. Step 1. Recognizing that you are not free, the first step to reclaiming your freedom is admitting that you've lost it. And this is harder than it sounds, because when someone has spent months, maybe even years, convincing you that their control is love, that their limitations are protection, that their manipulation is care, it doesn't feel like a cage, it feels like safety. So how do you know when you've lost your freedom? When your choices no longer feel like your own. When you hesitate before speaking, afraid of how they'll react. When you feel guilty for wanting something that they don't approve of. When you've lost relationships, dreams, and parts of yourself to keep them happy. When you feel exhausted, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally, because you are constantly trying to meet their expectations. Recognizing these signs is painful. It forces you to face the reality that someone you trusted, someone you loved, has taken more from you than you realized. But here's what you need to understand. This is not your fault. You did not allow this to happen because you were weak. You did not stay because you were foolish. You stayed because you believed in love, in care, in the good in people. But now it's time to believe in yourself. Step 2, reclaiming your voice. Once you recognize that you've been controlled, the next step is learning how to speak again. Because one of the first things that control and manipulation take from you is your voice. They make you question yourself. They make you afraid to express your thoughts, your needs, your desires. They make you doubt your own reality. So now you have to take your voice back. And it starts with small steps. Speaking up even when it feels scary. Saying no without justifying it. Expressing your needs without apology. Allowing yourself to have opinions even if they go against what they want. At first, it will feel uncomfortable. You'll feel resistance, both from them and from within yourself. But the more you use your voice, the stronger it becomes. And the stronger it becomes, the harder it is for them to silence you. Step 3, rebuilding your support system. When someone wants to control you, the first thing they do is isolate you. They take your relationships, your friends, your family, your community, and break them down piece by piece, because they know that if you have people around you who truly care about you, people who remind you of your worth, their control will start to slip. So now you have to reconnect. And this part can feel overwhelming. Maybe you're afraid that too much time has passed. Maybe you're ashamed of how long you stayed in the situation. Maybe you worry that people won't understand. But here's the truth. The people who love you have never stopped loving you. Yes, there may be some hurt feelings. Yes, there may be some relationships that need to be repaired. But if they truly care about you, they will be there. And when you start surrounding yourself with people who see you, who validate you, who remind you who you are, the grip of manipulation begins to loosen. Because now you're no longer fighting alone. Step 4, learning to trust yourself again. One of the most damaging effects of being controlled is that it makes you doubt yourself. You've been told for so long that your instincts are wrong, that your feelings are overreactions, that your choices aren't the right ones. And after a while, you start to believe it. So even when you finally break free, you may find yourself struggling to trust your own judgment. What if I'm wrong? What if I make another bad decision? What if I end up in the same situation again? These fears are valid, but they are also lies. Lies that were planted in your mind by someone who wanted to keep you doubting yourself. The truth is, you are capable, you are strong, you are wiser now than you were before, and the only way to rebuild that trust in yourself is to start making choices again, without fear, without guilt, without apology. At first, it will feel uncertain. But every time you make a choice and see that you were right, every time you listen to your intuition and realize it was guiding you in the right direction, your confidence will grow, and soon you will trust yourself more than you ever trusted them. Step 5, creating a life that belongs to you. Freedom isn't just about breaking away from control. It's about deciding what comes next, because now you are not just leaving something behind, you are stepping into something new. A life that you couldn't live without them. But the moment you take your power back, the moment you say, no more, I deserve better, I choose myself, they lose. Because they can no longer reach you, they can no longer control you, they can no longer manipulate you into believing that their love was real love. And when you finally step into your own power, when you choose freedom over fear, when you reclaim everything they tried to take from you, you win. And this time, the life you build is yours and yours alone. Freedom is not something someone gives you, it's something you reclaim for yourself. It is a decision, a journey, and a promise to yourself that you will no longer live in someone else's shadow. That you will no longer shrink to make someone else comfortable, that you will no longer mistake control for care. The truth is, breaking free is not just about walking away from manipulation and control. It's about rediscovering yourself. It's about unlearning the doubts and fears that were planted in your mind. It's about realizing that your voice matters, that your choices are valid, and that you are worthy of a life that is truly your own. Yes, the path to freedom is difficult. It requires courage to face the truth, strength to stand up for yourself, and resilience to rebuild what was lost. But the moment you decide that you deserve better, the moment you stop seeking permission to be yourself, the moment you choose to live on your own terms, that is the moment you win. Because real love does not silence you. Real love does not trap you. Real love does not demand that you shrink yourself to fit into someone else's version of who you should be. Real love, whether from others or from within, sets you free. So today, right now, choose yourself. Choose your voice, choose your future, and step boldly into the life that has always been waiting for you. The life where you are no longer controlled, no longer manipulated, no longer afraid. And a life where you are finally, completely, and unapologetically free.